Hello boys and girls of the internet, and welcome to a new video. Today we will be diving into the statistical data of this year's All-Star Rookie Battle. Thanks to Google Sheets and RacingReferences.net, I've been able to find all this data and make some very interesting comparison. Before the start of the 2021 season, I made a video comparing all of the rookies and listing their strengths and weaknesses and the things that would be the biggest challenge for them. The finale has happened, the season is over, so now is the perfect time to look at how the drivers performed. Before we get into the data, let me give you a short performance review of the three rookies. Looking back at Jimmie Johnson's season, it was quite a challenging one for him. The change from the slow, robust stock car road racing to the fast-paced, precise, and on the limit style of open wheel racing really caught Jimmie out of his element. This was something that I talked about inside the video I made before this season, and it ended up being a bigger challenge than I thought it would be for him. I mean, this is a 7-time champion we're talking about. It really highlights how different these two sports really are. Even though they race on a lot of the same tracks, they're both in the same country, and there's been quite a few drivers who have raced in both, especially like the Indianapolis 500. I noticed at the beginning of the season it looked like he was having a hard time finding the limit on the car. It wasn't like he was pushing too hard and making mistakes. It was kind of like these awkward, like him not knowing what to do in a certain situation, him not being used to the car behaving in a certain way. He definitely wasn't maximizing the pace of the car. He wasn't able at first to really get in a rhythm to extract more pace than he probably could have. As the season went on, he got more and more comfortable. We saw him making some overtaking moves, which was quite exciting because for most of the season he kind of just qualified around like 20th or so, and then just kind of ran at the back, took off plate positions from drivers who had errors in the pits, failures. But when we got to like the Indianapolis Grand Prix, the second one, I saw him making some decent moves, and it's that the latter part of the season where you can really tell that this wasn't really a late career parade lap, and it was more so him finding a new challenge. And he has really been trying hard to basically unlearn the things that he learned in the stock car. It's very difficult when you spend most of your career driving a car a certain way, and then all of a sudden you have to switch it up. He's like 45 years old, I think, and now he has to learn a completely new style of racing compared to a lot of the guys who spent their entire lives racing open wheel cars. Jimmie's rookie battle was less with the other rookies inside the field, and it was more so him challenging his own ability. Next up, we have the man himself, Romain Grosjean. Everybody from the Formula One world has been paying attention to how he's been doing in IndyCar, and he has been making a lot of people excited. From his first weekend, he was already impressive, and I know there's people who are probably shocked by this surprising pace, especially some of the folks who don't focus too much in Formula One. And the qualifying at Barber Motorsports Park really highlighted that. I knew Grosjean was a fast driver. One of the things that I was worried about Grosjean was Grosjean's quite a crash-prone driver. He's an incident-prone driver from his years in Formula One. Many people have made fun of it before. Many people have memed it. He's made some very silly mistakes over the course of his F1 career, but that Grosjean, it really wasn't in this IndyCar season. I think the only part of the season where he had some clumsy mistakes was at Portland on the first lap when he came barreling down the inside, which many other drivers were also clumsy on that first lap. But he did an amazing job adapting to the close, very hard-fought racing environment of IndyCar. Before the season, I made a prediction about Romain Grosjean. I said that he would get a pole because I know he's very fast on one lap pace, and that his best finish was only going to be a 4th though. I was like, he's going to get close to the podium, but he's not going to get it. But he's exceeded my expectations a lot. He's had 3 podiums this year and came damn near close to winning in the first Indianapolis GP. Then we have Scott McLaughlin. In all honesty, this may just be my personal viewpoint, but hasn't it felt like we've seen Scott on the TV a lot less than the other 2 rookies? I don't know if it's just me doing a bad job of paying attention, but it feels like he's gotten a lot less airtime than the other two rookies, which feels a bit criminal. Regardless of all that, I am a bit shocked at some of the lack of performances across certain races by Scott. I don't think he had a bad season. I just expected him to optimize it a lot better. He is dealing with a lot of the same challenges of Jimmie Johnson, moving from the big heavy supercar. And I mean, obviously the supercar is a little bit more closer to IndyCar than NASCAR is to IndyCar, because supercars, they race on road courses only, road and street courses. Seeing that he was the reigning supercar champion, and I think is the supercar season still going on? Oh yeah, he is still the reigning supercar champion. I was expecting him to finish a little bit higher up the order, but I can also sympathize with him facing some of the same struggles that the other Penske drivers had. I mean, Simon Pagenaud had a pretty shaky season. Will Power had a pretty shaky season. To be fair, as a rookie, he didn't finish too far off from his much more experienced teammates. I think Penske has been a little bit lacking when it comes to like the performance on track, some of the operational stuff. They've been making some pit stop errors, some strategical errors. They've not been taking as much as they used to in previous years. I know, how much wins did Penske have this season in total? Like 3? You know, you expect a lot more of this, especially when you consider Penske, they pretty much own the sport, both figuratively and literally. But besides everything I said, I am still very, very confident inside Scott's ability, and I think after a few more races next year, after maybe a bit of an off season reflecting on the different challenges he's had, he will definitely be a championship contender next year. I'll put my money on that. Enough of my thoughts, let's look at the hardcore data. Jimmie Johnson finished 26th in the standings with 108 points. Best qualifying was his first race, surprisingly, with 21st. His best race was the Long Beach Grand Prix and Laguna Seca, where he finished 17th in both of them. Average starting position was 23.6, average finishing position 21.1. These averages are pretty solid. 21 doesn't sound that exciting as a finishing average, but you have to consider IndyCar had an incredible year. They've had like 27, 28 cars in a lot of the races, and so Jimmie is definitely beating other drivers on the track. He's definitely outperforming a couple of guys on most days. Next we have Romain Grosjean, who finished 15th in the standings with 272 points. His best qualifying was obviously the pole in Indianapolis. His best race was the Indianapolis GP, where he led the most laps, came very near to winning, but finished second. Average starting position 9.3, average finishing position 12.7. In all honesty, I didn't pay too much attention to the rookie standings up until like the last 3 races, and I'm actually very surprised at how close he narrowed the margin to Scott McLaughlin. Scott finished 14th in the standings with 305 points. Best qualifying is 5th, the first Indy Grand Prix. His best race was Texas Race 1, where he finished 2nd. Average starting position 15.3, average finishing position 13.1. I was pretty unsure of how Scott would do on the ovals at the start of the year. Obviously, he did a lot of testing there, but testing doesn't equate to how good you'll be in a racing condition. Driving around the oval and testing and driving around the oval with 20-something other cars is a whole different ball game. But he instantly, day one, proved me wrong. Finished 2nd. It was incredible, and in fact the ovals were actually his best performing races, including the Indy 500, where he qualified better than all of his Penske teammates. Editor Drayden here. One of the interesting stats I forgot to mention about Scott McLaughlin is that he finished every single race this year. In fact, he finished 99.1% of the laps run across his entire season. He's completed every lap except 17. Now that we got the normal points out of the way, this is where the fun begins. We're going to be looking at the road course only points. So this means that every driver is on a much more level playing field when we look at the points. And this is how it is. Jimmie Johnson, he's still at 108 points. Scott McLaughlin is at 189 points. And Romain Grosjean up to 256 points, a full 67-point gap between Romain Grosjean and Scott McLaughlin. The max you can score in an IndyCar race weekend is about 54 points if you win the race, lead the most laps, lead a lap, and get the pole position. So basically, Grosjean managed to pull a full race weekend and a bit more of a points gap on Scott McLaughlin, which is incredible. We shouldn't really be too surprised at this though. Obviously, Grosjean is the much more experienced road racer. He spent his entire racing life racing open wheel cars, so it should be normal that he outperformed Scott McLaughlin on the road course, at least for now. One last note on Grosjean. I know this is kind of sounding like a Romain Grosjean fan club video, but it is truly impressive that he was able to finish ahead of 7 full-time drivers in the IndyCar points, especially when you consider that he missed about Texas 1, Texas 2, the Indy 500, which is double points. That's about 3 to 4 races worth of points, and he still was able to finish higher than 7 different drivers, including some very successful ones like Sebastian Bourdais and Ryan Hunter-Reay. Despite all of this, it obviously goes to Scott McLaughlin, who scored the most points throughout all 16 rounds of IndyCar this year. That's how the points work. If you choose not to race at a certain racetrack or a certain type of racetrack, you choose to lose those points. It's a give or take, but I'm sure Grosjean really doesn't care. And I'm sure Jimmy wasn't really in the fight to begin with. If you go over to my Instagram, I actually have some head-to-head comparison, like the F1 head-to-head teammate comparisons they made. I made those with all 3 of this year's rookie. I made 3 different slides. You can go over at my Instagram and also at my Twitter if you have Twitter. It is right on the screen somewhere. There's sort of like a animation that's happening, and you can look at those head to head, and they have some very interesting stats, including the fact that Jimmie Johnson actually finished higher than Romain Grosjean in 2 different races this year. That's very interesting. So head over to this ad or hit one of the links inside the description and you will see that. I'll also be posting some interesting stats from a few of the other drivers inside the IndyCar series on my social media. I may make another video on this season. That's probably a lie. I lied. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed these stats that I've presented. Hopefully it gave you a better representation of this year's IndyCar All-Star Rookie battle. In all honesty, who do you think deserves Rookie of the Year? And how do you think these drivers will do in their sophomore years in IndyCar? Let me know inside the comments below. Let me know your thoughts on this video. Subscribe to see more videos like this. Thank you all for watching once again. This is Drayton from DK Media. I'll see you in the next one.